Please note the meeting will be recorded and published online for public access after the meeting. You're also reminded to note that we may have members of the public or press observing today's proceedings. Can I ask those who are observing today's meeting to keep their microphones and cameras switched off throughout? Can members of the review body leave their cameras on but mute their microphone when not speaking? As the local review body contains co-judicial business, members are reminded that they should not leave the meeting during consideration of any of the reviews. The meeting has been convened in response to 2 requests for review of the decision taken by the appointed officer under the Council's scheme of delegation. Members of the local review body have before them copies of the review documents as listed in the notice calling the meeting. I'll now ask Ms McBain, the Assistant Clerk, to outline the procedure to be followed in the conduct of reviews and take a roll call, Lucy, please. Lindsay, please.
That's okay, thank you. Members have the procedure note which was circulated with the meeting papers and is intended to set out the wider framework within which the review process operates. The first task for the review body is to come to a decision on whether the review documents contain sufficient information for the case to be determined without further procedure, and by that it is meant without further information or representations. The regulations governing the local review process require that all matters which the applicant intends to raise in the review must be set out in or accompany the notice of review. The focus of the review should be on the basis of what was before the appointed officer when a decision was made, and only in exceptional circumstances will new or additional matters be permitted to be taken into account. The circumstances in which additional matters may be taken into account are set out in the legislation and will be addressed by the LRB's advisors where relevant. This review should take the form of a structured discussion led by the chairperson to consider the matter set out in the notice of review before you, and I would conclude by drawing your attention in particular to points 10 to 12 of the procedure note. If members just please indicate that they're present. So Councillor Copeland as chair.
Present.
Councillor Blake for the first case.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton.
Present.
And Councillor Cook.
Present.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Lindsay. Turning to consideration of the first review, in respect of the decision to refuse the application for the change of use from Class 4 business to Form 24 affordable flats, including formation of replacement of doors, formation of windows, installation of cladding, and alterations to the car park and gardening ground, with associated works including boundary treatments, bin store and landscaping at Lauriston House, 102 Wellington Road, Aberdeen. Planning reference number 250202. We'll now hear from the planning advisor in attendance, Ms. Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application proposal and a reminder of the reasons why the application was refused. I would point out that Ms. Green attends today's meeting to provide us with the necessary professional planning guidance, because she has not been involved in the earlier consideration of application review. Ms. Green will not, however, be asked to express any view on the merits of the proposed development, and in effect her role will be a neutral one, involving the provision of factual information and guidance only.
Thank you.
I think
Councillor Cook wants to.
Yes, John, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I probably need to make a transparency statement on this one, in that there are numerous references in the paperwork to the Health and Social Care Partnership, and I sit on the IJB, and there are also letters from Audrey Nicholl MSP and Stephen Flynn MP. So just a transparency statement, but I just thought I ought to just register that.
Okay, thank you for that. Ms. Green, do you want to?
Yes. I don't know whether Councillor Bolton's aware that the camera's showing the notebook. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I joined late, so I didn't. Right. I will share my screen. Right. Yes, the first review is into the refusal of change of use from Class 4 to form 24 affordable flats at Lauriston House on Wellington Road. And the request for review was submitted with all the necessary information within the time limit. And the applicant has indicated that there are no new matters raised in the review submissions. However, there are the letters from the MP and MSP which were not within the original submissions. So I'll come back to those before handing back to members to decide how to proceed and whether to take those into account. So in terms of procedure by which the review will be conducted, the applicant has expressed the view that a site visit should take place. I'll provide some background to the cases before handing back for the members to decide how to proceed. So this is the location plan showing Lauriston House, which is this building here, close to the roundabout with Wellington Road and Hareness Road. And that's just Google aerial photos showing the building here. And again, viewed from the north. So that's the existing site layout, and the site's just over 3,000 square metres and contains the two-storey vacant office building. And this is from the applicant's submissions, just showing surrounding uses. So the Aldi there, residential area, and Police Scotland. There's a residential house and some other houses. The lorry park and the site of the former Lorries Hotel, and just the general industrial area over to the east. And this is the view along Wellington Road. You can see the application building here on the right. And then again, that's taken from the roundabout. So you can see Wellington Road on the right here and Hareness Road on the left. That's the existing site plan again. This is the first floor plan. Sorry, I've just lost the ground floor plan. Perhaps it's slotted in afterwards. If the ground floor plan doesn't appear, I'll just go online and find that to show you. So that's the first floor plan. There are 24 flats in total, so 14 one-bed flats on the first floor and 1 two-bed flat, and then a further 9 flats on the ground floor. And this is the proposed site plan. So you can see car park here for 26 cars, a bin store, communal open space, landscaping, and then this area is split into private garden plots for the occupants of flats on the ground floor. And the elevations to the building. The northeast elevation along here, and then the southwest elevation that you would see from the road. So the main changes are that the building would be reclad and the windows replaced. You can see that these larger windows have been introduced with Juliet balconies. And the other two elevations from the northwest and the southeast. And that one's just showing the parking plan and hedging that would be introduced. There would also be 15 trees planted, which you can see indicated here. These are the existing trees. A mixture of hedging, beech, privet and a wildlife mix. So there would be 2 trees lost for the proposal, which are up in this area here. Norway maples. And this is showing the benches with the planting around them and the biodiversity, which is based around the trees, hedges and wildflower seeding for pollinators, nesting and wildlife shelter and connections with other natural spaces. And this is just showing the boundary fence, which is the 2 metre fence. So it goes along this line here, and the blue line just there. And that was recommended in the noise impact assessment. And then other fencing within the area that would be the 1.8 metre hit and miss timber fencing. And that's just showing the elevations of the bin enclosure, again with a timber fencing. This is a fire tender swept path, and the same was also provided for a refuse vehicle, which shows that both can access the site. It's taken from the tree survey and shows the 2 trees to be felled for the development and the others to remain both outside the site and within the site. So let me just find the ground floor plan. Apologies, I must have deleted that from the presentation. Just one moment. So that's the ground floor plan showing the 9 flats, 9 one-bed flats with they've got turning circles indicating the bariatric wheelchair accessibility. Right, so I'll just go back to my presentation. So the reasons for refusal. The first reason relates to the use of land for residential use, changed from within the policy B1 area, that it wouldn't be compatible with business and industrial uses on neighbouring sites. Second reason for refusal, that the proposed development would not be in a suitable location for residential use, being remote from existing residential communities and sited immediately adjacent to the dual carriageway and industrial estate, So it wouldn't be particularly pleasant or easy to move around, contrary to policies 14 on design in NPF 4 and D1 on quality placemaking in the Aberdeen local plan. The development itself would also not provide a satisfactory level of residential amenity conducive to the health and well-being of future occupants, with deficits in terms of internal floor areas, outlook, daylight and sunlight receipt, and the amount and quality of on-site open space, contrary to policies D2 and WB1 on healthy developments in the LDP. The third reason would be that although the development would be connected into the adopted footpath network and sited within the 20-minute walk of various shops, etc., the surrounding pedestrian network is not of a particularly high quality, especially for those with mobility issues, as accessing the majority of the aforementioned amenities would involve crossing over Hareness Road and Wellington Road, with a lack of safe signalised crossing points in the immediate vicinity of the development, so that it would fail to comply fully with policies 13 on sustainable transport and 15 on local living in NPF 4. And finally, as the site's in an unsuitable location for housing in terms of the land use zoning, that's the policy B1, business and industrial zoning in the local development plan, and in terms of substandard quality of amenity and connectivity, the proposed development is also contrary to policy 16 on quality homes, and in particular paragraph F2, which I'll show you later on in my presentation, which sets out the limited circumstances under which proposals for new homes on land not allocated for housing in the LDP can be supported. So the applicant's case, firstly, that the proposal would not result in a land use conflict with the B1 business and industry zone, as the area is of mixed use character along Wellington Road. Secondly, the proposal would create a high quality place and a pleasant residential environment, and there would be community storage space on the first floor, which would add to the internal space. It would enhance pedestrian connectivity and integrate with the existing 20-minute neighbourhood. It would be an appropriate location for affordable and specialist provision housing, despite not being allocated in the LDP for housing. The benefits would be that it would be affordable housing with specialist wheelchair accessible ground floor units designed for bariatric and mental health conditions and learning disabilities, in collaboration with Aberdeen City Council's housing strategy, Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership, and is recognised in the Strategic Housing Investment Plan since 2024. It would address gaps in need and reduce delayed hospital discharge. Also, it would involve the reuse of a vacant building. It's been vacant since 2016 despite marketing for a decade for office use, and the other option would be demolition. That there is meaningful biodiversity enhancement as part of the proposal, and also that it will be accessible by public transport and safe access for vehicles and on foot. Some further points from the applicant's submission, that it is 800 metres to the south is the Wellington Circle Retail Park, which includes a number of premises listed there. And the area to the west is also mixed use, which I'll show you on the next slide, the indications of the distances. Taking into account the proposed use, it's worth considering that it's within a 20-minute drive of hospital and medical centres. Also, the structure of the existing building would suit the proposed use as it has a steel frame and reinforced concrete. The next point is that the use would be 100% affordable housing. There would be no on-site specialist care or permanent staff, so it doesn't constitute a Class 8 residential institution. The housing need and demands assessment indicates the need for 10 bariatric homes, and the Health and Social Care Partnership indicates that there would be 30 required by 2034. The local housing strategy indicates a lack of housing for people with learning disabilities mental health and substance misuse problems, and the housing need and demand assessment indicates the need for wheelchair accessible housing. Also, the national health and wellbeing outcomes, one of those is living independently at home. In terms of car parking, there would be 26 spaces and 1 EV charging point, and those are accepted by the report of handling. The refuse storage proposals are acceptable. Access, traffic generation and servicing, there's no objection from the roads team to those. The flats have large windows and the layout precludes dual aspect for all the flats. The site is near and adjacent to green spaces, and there's also mention of a precedent case at Banks of D, which was a change of use application from a nursing home to affordable housing. And that one was also in a business industrial zoning. So I'll just show you, this was in the applicant's statement as well, and just shows these circles for distances. So that's the application premises, and it's showing distances to different green spaces, shops and the retail park. In terms of consultations and representations, as was mentioned, the roads team has no objection. They state that the cycle spaces could be conditioned. There's a draft travel plan which is acceptable, and there are bus stops and services nearby. There are bus stops just to the south on the other side of the roundabout, and also obviously to the north. Electric vehicle charging is under the building standards remit now, and the requirement, they mention a requirement to modify a splitter island. The existing drainage is assumed to be being used. The contaminated land team, there was an advisory that if any contamination is discovered, they should be contacted. In terms of the developer obligations team, they indicated there would be contributions due on any approval for core paths, healthcare, open space and community facilities, and also to tie in the affordable housing. Environmental health had no objection based on the noise impact assessment, which proposes a closed windows approach with trickle vents. The outdoor noise was over the limit, and that would require the acoustic barrier fences that I showed previously. Housing strategy team state that bariatric accommodation is needed, and that any RSL would need a planning permission for general housing in order to get funding for the proposal, just to future-proof their investment. The Waste team and Scottish Water both had no objection. Cove and Ulton's Community Council had no objection. There were 7 objections, and those were on the grounds of traffic generation, that the proposed use conflicts with the business and industrial zoning, amenity for residents, access, and that there are other sites more suitable. There was also the new information in the form of the letters from Stephen Flynn MP and Audrey Nicholl MSP and NHS Grampian referred to and included in the notice of review statement. And the points made within those letters were reiterated within the statement and included in my summary. So I'll just hand over to legal to run through this slide on consideration of new matters.
Thank you, Lucy. Members are aware that there are certain restrictions relating to new matters being raised and taken into account at a local review body hearing. This is a reminder of the test which is set out in the legislation. So in order for the local review body to be satisfied that new matters can be taken into account, they need to be satisfied that the applicant has demonstrated that the matter in question could not have been raised before that time, or that it not being raised before that time was a consequence of exceptional circumstances. However, as the slide states, that does not affect any requirement or entitlement for the local review body to have regard to the provisions of the local development plan and any other material consideration. And now it is a matter for the members of the local review body to decide whether or not the new matters should be taken into account in the determination of this review. Thank you.
Members, are we satisfied that we should take the letters from Stephen Flynn MP and Audrey Nicholl MSP into account when determining this? Councillor Bolton, I see your hands up.
I don't believe there is any reason why they couldn't have been submitted in advance, and really I think that we shouldn't be taking them, because I think that the application was out there, and I think it could be seen as prejudicial, because obviously the applicant wouldn't have had the opportunity to respond to them. So I think I would rather not take them. I don't think it's necessary for us to see them to be able to determine the application. And I suppose, erring on the side of caution. So I would suggest that there's no material reason why they couldn't have put these in earlier if they've been aware of it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cook, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, on the one hand, I've seen them and I can't unsee them. On the other hand, I actually don't think that they make a great deal of difference, because the points that are in those representations are covered elsewhere in the applicant's submission. So I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. So I would be with Councillor Bolton.
Okay, Councillor Blake.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that a lot of what's in the letters are covered elsewhere in the documentation. I think it's just, reiterating. So I'm quite comfortable with not taking them. Thank you.
Okay, that's unanimous then. We won't be taking them. Right. We now need to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, remember, if you do not feel you have enough information to make a decision, you can request that further written information be provided, hearing can be arranged, or a site visit be undertaken. I believe we have sufficient information, don't need a site visit. Does anybody feel otherwise?
I'm comfortable we have sufficient information today to take a decision. Thank you.
Councillor Blake?
I agree. I think we've got sufficient information.
Councillor Cook?
Make that unanimous.
Thank you. Right. So we've got that. As members feel we have sufficient information, we will now hear from Ms Green on the relevant policies and considerations for this review. Ms Green?
Thanks. I'll share my screen again. Right. Yeah, these are the policies from NPF4 that are relevant for consideration. The red spots are the ones that were used in the reason for refusal. So I won't go through all of them in detail. Obviously, policies 1 and 2 on the climate change and climate change mitigation, all decisions should give significant weight to the climate and nature crises and climate mitigation policy. And policy 2 states that development proposals, sorry, I've lost my place there. Sorry, policy 9 encourages the reuse of buildings as opposed to demolition, and policy 12 also favours reuse of buildings. And I'll cover most of the others in my presentation. So this is showing the local development plan zoning for the site, with the business industrial area here in a pinkish colour, residential area here, urban green space, that's green belt in these two, and the sort of spotted effect is the green space network. And so the relevant policies from the local development plan, and it's zoned under B1, and I'll cover that in a moment. And again, the design and amenity policies and healthy developments used within the reason for refusal. So I'll just move on to those. So policy B1, business and industrial or land, states that land zoned for business and industrial uses shall be retained for class 4, class 5 or class 6 uses and safeguarded from other conflicting development types. And it states that other uses which may be suited to a business and industrial location, such as car showrooms and bus depots, shall be treated on their merits, and the expansion of existing uses would be permitted in principle. And then it states that where business and industrial areas are located beside residential areas, that we would restrict new planning permissions to class 4, with buffer zones between those areas and the residential areas to safeguard amenity. So that second paragraph would be relevant to neighbouring sites seeking permissions in future. Also to mention is that the employment land audit is referred to and indicates that there would be no shortage created by the application if it were to be approved. So I'm just going to move on to policy 16 in NPF 4, which looks at housing on unallocated sites. So the intent of the policy is to encourage and facilitate the delivery of more high quality, affordable and sustainable homes in the right locations, providing a choice across tenures. And policy F refers to development proposals for new homes on land not allocated for housing in the LDP. And it states that will only be supported in limited circumstances. So first one is where the proposal is supported by an agreed timescale for build out. Then also where the proposal is otherwise consistent with the plan's spatial strategy and other relevant policies, including local living and the 20-minute neighbourhood. And then the third point is either delivery of sites is happening earlier than identified, and this would be determined by reference to 2 consecutive years of the housing land audit, or the proposal is consistent with the policy on rural homes, or the proposal is for smaller scale opportunities within an existing settlement, or, and this is the most relevant point, the proposal is for the delivery of less than 50 affordable homes as part of a local authority supported affordable housing plan. So looking at the policies in NPF 4 on sustainable transport and local living, policy 13 seeks provision of direct, easy, segregated and safe links to local facilities via walking, wheeling and cycling. And then policy 15 on local living and 20-minute neighbourhoods. The development proposals will contribute to local living where relevant within 20-minute neighbourhoods. And with consideration given to the existing settlement pattern and connectivity within the surrounding area, including sustainable modes of transport, public transport and high quality walking routes, employment, shopping, health and social care facilities, playgrounds and green spaces, and affordable and accessible housing options. And also of relevance are the design and landscaping policies. So policy D1 in the LDP seeks to ensure high quality of design, creating sustainable and successful places with a strong sense of place and landscape design. And then policy 14 also contains the 6 qualities of successful places. And in particular, it has distinctive the distinctive quality, so that would look at scale, built form, a sense of place and welcoming. There's sustainable, pleasant in terms of quality of public spaces and welcoming surroundings. In terms of healthy, includes access to open space, and being connected looks at pedestrian experience, safe crossing of roads and ease of moving around. And there's also adaptability quality. And policy D5, landscape design, proposals designed with effective, functional and attractive landscape frameworks. Policies on amenity and health and well-being. So there's policy WD1 in the local development plan, states that developments are required to provide healthy environments, reduce environmental stresses, facilitate physical activity and promote physical and mental well-being. And then policy D2 in the LDP as well on amenity, and the criteria within that are adequate levels of privacy, minimum space standards for internal floor space and private external amenity space, minimal shading of external spaces and satisfactory levels of daylight receipt and outlook. And then also to mention is the Aberdeen Planning Guidance on amenity and space standards, and the minimum space standards in there. The minimum is 52 square metres for a 1-bed and 66 for a 2-bed. So just pulling out of the report for the proposal, the 9 ground floor flats are greater than the 1-bed minimum space standard. On the first floor, most of the flats would be between 45 and 50 square metres, the 1-beds, other than 2 which exceed the minimum. And the 2-bed flat would be at 57.7 square metres, so that's below the minimum. 9 of the flats are also single aspect, while the space standards recommends dual aspect, and it also notes that there should be adequate glazing for good standard of daylighting and privacy. So finally, a reminder of the primacy of the development plan, which consists of NPF4 and the local development plan, and all applications being determined in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise, and an assessment of each application on its merits. So the basis for the decision in this case, would the proposals comply with the zoning policy B1? Would the proposal result in the loss of valuable business land? And would an approval adversely affect the viability of neighbouring business and industrial land? The second consideration would be, is it a suitable location for residential development, and would it provide a sufficient quality of residential amenity for the occupants? The third point, would the site benefit from suitable, sustainable and active travel connectivity to public transport and walking to local facilities and amenities? And lastly, in terms of the impact on amenity of the area, including residential amenity of immediate neighbouring properties. So overall, does the proposal comply with the development plan as a whole, or are the material considerations weighing for or against the proposal? And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Members, any questions from Ms. Green? Councillor Cook.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a couple of questions. One is around the extent to which the Banks D decision is a precedent, in that although it was zoned for business and industrial, the previous use was a care home. So could you give us a comment on that, maybe?
Yes, I suppose the differences would be, as you say, that it went from a nursing home to affordable homes, and also it's obviously a different site in a different location, and the that's relevant in terms of how you would look at residential amenity. So those would be the differences.
Okay, thanks for that. And the other question, if I can find my notes, is around there's commentary in the report of handling that an RSL wouldn't take it on because they were unless it was okay for general use as opposed to the bariatric use. Would that require a new planning application, or would it be the case that like an ordinary punter could go into those flats that are designed for bariatric wheelchairs and there's no issue there?
The permission seeks a sort of general housing, affordable housing. So, and I suppose what they're saying is that there wouldn't be permanent staff or full-time carers in there, so it doesn't fall into class 8. And I think what they're saying, well, it's the housing strategy team are saying that RSLs wouldn't take it on if it had any restrictions on the permission in terms of use, because they need to future-proof it. So yes, if you granted permission, it could be used by anyone who could be in affordable housing.
Thanks. And then my next question is around the lack of signalised crossings on the two roads. So if someone from there was wanting to get to the Aldi or the Wellington pub, you're having to cross quite busy roads. If we were to grant this, would we be able to condition putting signalised crossings in?
Yes, you could. I think the roads team suggest that a signalised crossing of Hareness Road would be appropriate as a condition. And there's a crossing to the south of the roundabout on Wellington Road. So it would be a roundabout route to the Wellington pub, but there is a crossing.
Thanks. I think that's probably it for now, unless something else occurs to me.
Thank you. Councillor Blake, you get your hand up.
Thank you, convener. Yeah, I was going to ask about the signalised crossing. Is it possible to condition the signalised crossing on Wellington Road, or is it too close to, if there's one at either side of the roundabout, is it possible to do signalise a crossing, have a signal crossing across Wellington Road?
On the north side of the roundabout, you mean? I mean, it would be in principle. I'm not sure where the nearest crossing to the north is. I could look at that on Google. And the applicant indicated they would be willing to put in the crossing on Hareness, but there wasn't mention of the one on Wellington. Right, so
I think it's right down at the other end of the road, from what I can see.
Yeah, that's one. That's the one to the south. Yeah, there's usually associated with bus stops. Is that? Yeah, there's not a signalised crossing there, I think. Do you mean further north, Councillor Bolton?
Yeah, towards the Cove, big roundabout there. There's one down there. I didn't see one
No.
other than the other side of the roundabout side, what takes across to the Barbers, I think it is, and next to Aldi's. There's one there, but there's not one until I think the far end, past the petrol station, the next roundabout.
Yeah, coming up to the next roundabout here.
Yeah,
yes, there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you go back onto the overhead.
I mean, you can cross all the roads. It's just that you have to take a slightly circuitous route to get.
Yeah, so it's there, and that's the. I mean, in principle, it could be conditioned. The only thing I'm not sure about is the accesses onto the road, but they don't. It's obviously one for the pub. I mean, it could be conditioned in principle.
Thank you. The other thing I just wanted to ask, so obviously this is on the edge of the energy transition zone. I note obviously that it's been a long time, it's been marketed for a long time, but there's obviously been an uptick in, well, the energy transition zone's reporting that's been uptick in businesses taking sites within that area. So how far is it from the energy transition zone? Am I right in thinking it's on the edge, or is it a bit further away from that?
Well, the energy transition zone has taken various buildings along Harness Road and obviously along, further north by the harbour. So it would be on the extremity of that area.
Okay. That's fine, thank you.
Councillor Bolton, do you have any questions?
No, everyone's asked my ones. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, the same goes with myself. Right. In accordance with the procedure note circulated, the local review body will now discuss and decide the manner in which the review is to proceed. To highlight that all representation linked to the case are being considered and taken into account. So, where are we going with this one? I am of the view that this site is unsuitable for what's being proposed. I think there's a lack of amenity at the site for the residents. Some of the flats are below the size that they should be. We've already highlighted the crossings for the busy main roads. And I feel that all in all, there's too many conflicts in B1, P14, D1, quality, amenity, transport. And overall, I would think we should refuse this one. I do appreciate that we have an urgent need for the type of housing that's being done, but I feel this is not the site to put it. Councillor Bolton, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate what you're saying, Convener, but I've actually struggled with this one because the last two that's been to use industrial land I've been opposed to because of the nature of the businesses around them. However, I could be swayed on this one because I feel that actually, compared to the other ones, it's got reasonable amenity. It's got a nice little woodland next to it. The access to public transport is good. It is set back from the road. And we've got an Aldi's on the corner, we've got a pub across the road, we've got housing across the road. There's a number of properties already on Wellington Road in the near vicinity. We've got the police station not far. It has been on the market for a long time, and what I don't want to see is continued demolition of buildings, particularly when they're having to pay business rates, etc. So this is where we're going to see that conflict with some of our policies. I appreciate one of the two-bedded flats is slightly under I think we can achieve a resolution for the crossing by putting one on Hareness Road, which will give good access then to the public transport. I think it's quite a bright open site. I think with additional landscaping and areas of garden, and with the cars getting greener and quieter, and I think my only reservation is the fact that it backs onto a lorry park, and how busy that would be. But I'm hoping during night time it'll be quiet, and that would be my only reservation. I think otherwise I could be persuaded to go with this application on, as a an individual one on its own rights. As a principle to use them, I wouldn't be supportive, but I think this one's got more going for it than, for instance, the Banks of Eve. It was a joint access and was quite a dangerous access in my view. I think this one's got a far better access, and I think it's got a wide open space around it. So, and we've heard that the rooms on the ground floor are larger than the requirement. There's parking, there's cycling, and there's the access to public transport. So I'm kind of comfortable with this one, but I'm interested to hear what other people would say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Cook.
To be absolutely honest, I'm in two minds on this one. If we were to approve it, I would want to see conditioning of the signalised crossings. We do need this type of housing. I think the fact that you've got the Wellington pub and the Aldi very, very close by kind of reassures me about local amenities. Yeah, I am worried about the size of the flats though. Yeah, sorry, I'm not being very helpful here. I'm kind of.
I'll give you a few more minutes to
sitting on the fence.
I'll give you a few more minutes to think about it. Councillor Blake, your views.
So, having looked at this, I was minded to, if we could condition the signalised crossings. I did feel that it's on the edge of the industrial zone, and it has been marketed a long time. I agree with Councillor Cook about the size of the flats. I am a bit concerned, that it seems to be quite a lot that are going to be under the minimum size, though I do appreciate that this is reusing a building, and that may make that more difficult than some others. But I think it is on a good bus routes. I think it's, and I am comfortable with it being, I like it, the fact it would be in keeping with policy 9 of reusing a brownfield site. I am comfortable with it being on the edge of, essentially within the buffer zone of a business industrial area, but I would particularly want to see the conditioning of the signalised crossings, because the amenities are largely the other sides of busy roads.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sticking with my original decision that I feel it's unsuitable. I seriously take into consideration we've got 9, if you like, bariatric suitable flats on the ground floor, but the upstairs ones are general use. And the general use ones are small, to say the least. I don't think it's practical to put a signalised crossing on Wellington Road. It may well be practical to put one on Hareness Road, and I quite happily would take a condition for that. But I feel there's more against than for on this site. So for that reason, I would be saying no, but I'm quite happy to put it to the vote. Councillor Bolton, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, can I just check with Lucy? Because my understanding was it not just the 2-bedroomed flat that was under the minimum?
No, some of the 1-bedroom flats were as well. The 1-bedroom flats on the ground floor were all were all above the minimum size, and then on the second floor where there are 15 flats, 2 of them were above the minimum and the rest were below.
How much below were they? Sorry, Lucy. I'm just, not that I'm very good with sizes.
I might have to just check the report. Just a minute. I mean, they are different sizes, so it's not. Let me just go back to the.
Sorry.
I think it's page 12.
Yeah, just trying to.
Right. It says that on the first floor, most of the flats would range between 45 square metres and 50 square metres in size, with the minimum being 52 square metres for a 1-bed.
You said it's between 45, so, yeah, I see it now, 45 and 50 square metres.
And the 2-bed would be 57.7 square metres, with 66 being the minimum space standard.
Yeah, I'm just rereading that bit. Okay, thank you, Lucy. There was something else that had sprung to mind, and something Councillor Copeland said, and I can't remember what it was. What was it? So we already have signalised a signalised junction on Wellington Road to the heading into Aberdeen, or beside the Barber Aldi bit, haven't we? I can see it, but I'm just wanting clarification that we do have crossings on Wellington Road. So it's not something that wouldn't be that being trying to make it a through road, or whatever they call it. I can't remember the name. Sorry, my brain's not firing this well today. Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Convener. I just wanted to quickly ask Lucy, so about the size, it also, and I think this must be in the applicants, but that on page 133, it mentions that about communal storage facility. So basically, it mentions, that there is a shortfall, but that there's communal storage facility. Where is that, and what is that?
I will show you on the plan. It's the green. This is the ground floor plan, so the green areas. This one's communal facility storage, including 26 bike racks, or for 26 bikes, and then there's this one as well. So that's the ground floor. Let me just see if there's what there is on the second floor. First floor, sorry. Yeah, it's the green areas again. So it's those rooms there. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Cook, do you want to come back in?
Not at this point. I'm still thinking. You can probably hear the cogs turning.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple of minutes before we actually go to decision then. Okay, I think we need to come to a decision here. I would be proposing that we uphold the officer's decision for the reasons stated by the officers. Councillor Bolton?
I think I will move approval subject to the road infrastructure being put in place for the safe crossings. So I'm just looking at my policies here. It's primarily around, sorry, I'm just getting back. Here we are. Under National Planning Framework 4, on Policy 9, brownfield sites, I actually think that we're in danger of having another building that's been empty for, what's that, 9 years, laying empty probably either for another 9, but worse than that, could be demolished. And I think when we've got Policy 9 under the National Planning Framework 4, we have to give serious consideration to the individual applications. I hear what we're saying about our under local development policy B1. However, I think policy 9 of the National Planning Framework, if you like, gazumps that on this occasion. I think that the area around the actual building, I think, can be landscaped appropriately to give amenity on the external side. I think there's local amenities close by. I think there's bus routes, there's cycle storage, there's car, there's an EV charging point. I think, yes, some of the rooms are marginally smaller than is ideal, and some of them are larger. So it's a bit of swings and roundabouts. I think the additional storage that Councillor Blake made reference to does mitigate some of that shortfall in the smaller flats. I can understand why you would move refusal, but I think that, we can't go around, I think we just have to consider that it is across the road from some housing. There's other houses already on Wellington Road. It's not perfect, and there's lots of applications are not perfect. I think they've tried to go a long way with considering that extra storage and the landscaping. That I would move that we approve the application with the relevant conditions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blake.
So I would agree on this stage with Councillor Bolton, and I would move to accept the application with conditions regarding safe crossings for Wellington Road and Herness Road. I agree around Policy 9. This is a brownfield site that has been sitting for a long period of time. There are amenities, admittedly, on the other side of the road. So I think, to me, the important thing is that we consider how there are residential area the other side of the road as well, and some houses on Wellington Road itself. So I think, to me, then we could take this forward, but condition the improvement in crossing points for the key roads.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, I think this is finely balanced. There are arguments on both sides. Could see why the officer has originally turned it down, but basically I'm persuaded by the arguments that Councillor Bolton and Councillor Blake have put forward. Yeah, there are, by the Wellington pub and by the police station, there are houses that are within a stone's throw. If we can condition the signalised crossings, I'd be happy to go ahead. If we can't condition that, I would say no. But if we can condition that, I'd say yes.
Okay. So that's 3-1 to. Oh, hang on. Elena Pews, you wish to say something?
Just to draw the body's attention to the fact that within the report of handling, there were developer obligations to be sought as well if the matter was to be approved. So just to ask if the committee would be minded, if that's the decision that's to be taken, minded to grant subject to a legal agreement to be entered into as well as the conditions.
Absolutely.
I was just coming to that. Thanks. Right. Decision 3-1, we have decided to overturn the officer's decision and grant permission for this, but we now need to finalise what conditions should be attached. So we've got signalised crossing here on Hareness Road. Are we saying a signalised crossing on Wellington Road as well?
I would be in favour of that. Sorry, I should have put my hand up, but I would be in favour of asking for that. But I do appreciate that. Maybe that's more tricky. I don't know. I would be interested to get some advice on that one. Thank you.
Is there anybody from roads?
I'm afraid there isn't anyone from roads.
Councillor Cook's got his hand up. Hold on a sec. John?
Basically, I agree with Councillor Blake.
Okay. So, Councillor Bolton?
Just to say, I also agree with Councillor Blake. However, if we speak to roads and there's a safety issue that we can't put on here on Wellington Road, I'd accept, as long as we definitely got on Hareness where they can cross Wellington Road just beyond the roundabout. So if it came to it, it's just a check if John and Kate are happy with that scenario, and we can take it.
Would it be appropriate for us to condition a crossing on Hareness Road and, if practical, a second crossing on Wellington Road? Does that suit you, Councillor Bolton?
Sorry. Gosh. Yes, sorry, I'm having finger trouble today. Yes, I'd be happy with that.
Okay. Councillor Blake, would that suit you?
Yes, that should be fine. Thank you.
John?
Yep, fine by me.
Okay, so that's one. What about amenity spaces? And we have the acoustic barriers and planting. Anything else?
And the developer's obligations, obviously.
And the developer's obligations and a suitable legal agreement. Yeah, so we're saying overturn the officer's decision and grant subject to crossing on Hareness Road, a crossing on Wellington Road if practical, and a suitable legal agreement. Yeah. Okay.
Agreed.
Does that suit the conditions, Lucy? Do you?
Yes, I would also suggest that a condition you may wish to attach to require the cycle parking and car parking to be implemented prior to occupation, the landscaping and tree protection to be in place, noise mitigation measures I think you mentioned, and also in terms of the Section 75 and the developer obligations, you may wish to consider including that the entire development is affordable housing rather than the 25% that would be required by policy, because obviously the parking level is at a level of affordable housing. So that's for members to consider as well. Would you wish to include housing in Section 75?
That seems reasonable. Could we also ask for a second EV point? There is one. Could we ask for another one?
Sorry, I think I froze then.
Right, I said there is one EV point in the car park. Could we condition a second one? Or is that out with my remit?
It's covered by building standards, so yes, it will have been agreed at the level.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry,
so,
I keep losing a signal.
It's all right. So that's then granted with the crossings, the legal agreement, and the other things that you said, Lizzie.
The affordable housing. Sorry, I cut out
yes.
at that moment.
Yeah, the affordable housing.
100% affordable housing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay. That's us. Right. Thank you all very much. That's the first one done. Councillor Blake, I think you're leaving us now, are you?
Yes, I am leaving you now. So
thanks very much for the attendance.
Okay, no problem. Bye.
Bye. Right, members, do you want a short break before we go into number 2? Or do you want to go straight ahead?
Yes, please.
Is that a short break?
A very short break.
Yeah, okay. 5 minutes. Right. Councillor Bolton, are you back?
I am here. Sorry, I was just having a technical moment.
All right. Well, we'll get going. Turning to consideration of the second review in respect of the decision to refuse the application for a change of use from agricultural land to domestic garden ground and erection of a 1.5 and single-storey extension to the side at Boriston Bothy, Boriston Road, Aberdeen, planning reference 250377. We will again hear from the planning advisor in attendance, Ms. Lucy Green, who will provide us with a brief description of the application proposal and a reminder of the reasons why the application was refused. I would point out that Ms. Green attends today's meeting to provide us with the necessary professional planning guidance because she has not been involved in the earlier consideration of the application and review. Ms. Green will not, however, be asked to express any view on the merits of the proposed development, and in effect her role will be a neutral one involving the position of factual information and guidance only. Ms. Green, over to you.
Thank you, convener. That should be so this is a request for review and to a change of use from agricultural land to domestic garden ground and the erection of a 1.5-storey and single-storey extensions to the side at Boriston Bothy. And the review submissions were received within the time limit. The applicant indicated on the notice of review that there were no new matters raised in the submissions. And in terms of procedure, in the statement of review, there's a request that members visit the site and surrounding area. However, there are also images included in case that's not possible. So I'll provide some background information to the cases before handing back to the convener for members to discuss and decide how to proceed. So this is the location plan and the existing site plan. This is the AWPR junction on the A944, and the site's accessed along this road off the roundabout there, and it's up here. So you can see the bothy there with the farm buildings, farmhouse and existing couple of houses, and this is the route down to the roundabout. And this is the site plan, and it shows on here in the orange dashed line the line of the current domestic curtilage. So that area would be agricultural land. And that's the overhead photograph of the building. It's just in here, the application site. And a further image from Google just taken from the north. So this is the application property. That's the original bothy with the extension that was granted together with the change of use to the house, and then the garden and the parking area there. So the change of use would involve this piece of land here. This is looking from the access road, well, the road that gives access, and the existing property is here. That's the extension, the bothy there. And this is taken from the applicant's statement and shows the bothy and extension. That's the farmhouse behind, so it's this, the house is this building and the white building. So looking at the site plan, this is the existing site plan with again the line of the current domestic curtilage, and the proposed plan. So the extension consists of this linking single-storey link, and then this is the extension and the change of use, obviously, of this ground. And these are some images that were in the applicant's statement. So the extension is this black timber-clad element with the linking section, and the existing is the white and the original bothy. So these are existing, and that's the extension, and that's from the south. So the ground floor plan as existing here, and then as proposed with this extension. And the first floor plan, so that's existing. So in the existing building, there's a mezzanine, which is a living room, and then there's a bedroom within the single-storey bothy, and there would be 2 bedrooms in the upper level of the extension. So this is the north elevation as seen from the sort of farm buildings. See the bothy and the extension. And then as proposed, this is the north elevation of the extension. And the materials, the zinc-rich flashing stainless steel stove to the chimney to the stove, the Velux roof light to the extension roof, vertical thermopine timber cladding, which is black, to the main extension building, and horizontal to the link building, and grey alu-clad Nordam windows, grey-black. And it's also, the annotations state that the ridge does not exceed the height of the existing ridge, so it's comparing with the existing extension. And then this is the east elevation, which doesn't change. And from the south, so this is the existing south elevation, and with the extension. Materials as mentioned before, with also this stone base course with a slate sill capping. So this is the extension. You can see that the ground levels would be built up here to accommodate the extension. And that's the original bothy. And 2 sections through the existing extension. You can see the bothy in the background and the mezzanine floor. And then as proposed, this is the extension here with the link. And these are the elevations within the sort of the space that's created between the existing extension and the proposed. So the internal east elevation, this is the extension, and it's cut through the link hallway. And then looking the other way, that's the existing extension and the bothy. And then the proposed west elevation. Here, this is the extension, and the existing west elevation just there. So the reasons for refusal, the key points were that the combined impact of the proposed and existing extensions would more than triple the footprint of the original bothy. They would be greater in length, width and height than the original bothy, and not therefore small scale, subordinate or ancillary. Change of use of greenbelt land means it is not within that the extension is not within the existing boundary, and it would also intensify the residential activity. The third point was that the design and siting of the proposed extension would appear as a separate building and dominant compared to the existing, especially from the south, and that it would be visible in long views. There would also be a negative visual impact on the character, landscape and natural setting of the greenbelt, and it would be therefore contrary to policy 8 on greenbelt, 14 on design and 16 on quality homes in NPF 4, and policy NE1 on greenbelt, D1 on design and D4 on landscape design in the local development plan. So for the applicant's case, it was mentioned that the site is part of a group of farm buildings as well as 2 modern bungalows, that there was a permission for the conversion of the bothy to a house, and the extension was granted as one permission in 2017. That the applicant requires a larger home for a growing family, and reconfiguring the existing doesn't work for various reasons. It was pointed out that the extension mirrors the existing extension on a slightly smaller scale, with the flat roof linking the two. The application includes the change of use of agricultural land, which is a track that's no longer needed for the farm, and the area is 0.02 hectares. The statement states that the APG is not policy, and the concept of original building is not relevant in this case, as the bothy is subsumed into the home. Also, that the reason for refusal is based solely on massing and perceived dominance. A further point is that the proposal complies with Section D of Greenbelt Policy, as it is within the boundary, small scale, and doesn't significantly increase activity. Further points from the applicant. Greenbelt Policy relates to the existing building, and the existing building includes the original building plus the extension. So in that case, the existing building, house plus extension, would be 137 square metres, whilst the proposed extension is 75.4 square metres. In response to the reason for refusal that the extension would be out with the existing boundary and that indicates excessive scale, the extension would mostly sit on a gravel parking area, and it would, part of the site of the extension would be on the existing farm track. But you could argue that the track is brownfield, the statement says, and it's not considered excessive and would round off the curtilage. The point's made that the extension would not be visually separate and it would provide a cohesive extension. And in terms of the front door, it replaces a front door in the existing extension, while the door to the bothy itself remains. The views included within the surrounding area show that it would not impact on the character, landscape and natural setting of the greenbelt. And a final point, that the extension to the north as an alternative would compromise access to the farm, so that's not possible. And this is an image from the applicant's case, and it's showing in the photograph the area that would be the subject of change of use. It's looking along this sort of rough track, which is there. In terms of consultations, there was no objection from the roads team and no comments received from the Community Council. So at that point, I will hand back to members to decide how to proceed.
Thank you, Lucy. We now need to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, remember that if you do not feel you have enough information to take a decision, we can request that further information be provided, hearing be arranged, or a site visit to be undertaken. I think we've got sufficient information. Do you agree?
Yep, I'd agree with that.
Councillor Bolton?
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
So we agree that, right? Members, in turn, we've agreed that. As members feel they have sufficient information, we can now hear from Ms Green on the relevant policies and considerations for this review. Ms Green?
Thank you. So these are the relevant policies in NPF 4. Policies 1 and 2, in terms of climate change, all decisions should give significant weight to the climate and nature crises and climate mitigation. Policy 14 relates to design and is similar to the policies on design and the adopted and proposed plans, which I'll cover in a moment. And then in terms of the local development plan, the site is within the Greenbelt, so policy NE1 on Greenbelt is relevant, as well as design and amenity policies and landscape, waste management and parking. So policy D2 on amenity requires appropriate levels of amenity for future residents, and D4 on landscape does not support development where it would adversely affect the setting of the city. I'll just have a closer look at Greenbelt policy. So development in areas defined as Greenbelt will not be supported except in certain circumstances. And one of those is paragraph D, where it's associated with existing activities in the Greenbelt and is within the boundary of that activity, is small scale, does not significantly increase the intensity of the activity, and the proposed built construction is subordinate to what already exists, including extensions to existing dwellings. The NPF 4 Greenbelt policy, so the aim of that is that the character, landscape, natural setting and identity of settlements is protected and enhanced. And the development proposals will only be supported where they are for, well, one of the exceptions is the intensification of established uses, including extensions to an existing building where that is ancillary to the main use, and it has certain requirements. So I won't go through all of them. Proposal is compatible with the surrounding countryside and landscape character. And then this one, the proposal has been designed to ensure of appropriate scale, massing and external appearance, and uses materials that minimise visual impact on the Greenbelt as far as possible. And the design policy, this is from NPF 4 and is very similar to the local development plan policy. So proposals will be designed to improve the quality of an area, whether urban or rural, and regardless of scale. And they will be supported where they comply with the 6 qualities. And those are healthy, pleasant, connected, distinctive, sustainable and adaptable. Development proposals that are poorly designed and detrimental to the amenity of the surrounding area or inconsistent with the 6 qualities of successful places will not be supported. The policy 16 on quality homes, in terms of householder development proposals, they will be supported where they do not have a detrimental impact on the character or environmental quality of the home and the surrounding area in terms of size, design and materials, and don't have a detrimental impact on neighbouring properties in terms of physical impact, overshadowing or overlooking. So this is from the Householder Development Guide, and the general principles are architectural compatibility in design and scale with the original house and surrounding area, materials being complementary, The extension should not overwhelm or dominate the original form or appearance of the dwelling and should be subservient in height, mass and scale. Impact on neighbours is also a consideration. States that no existing extensions prior to the guidance would provide a precedent that would be a justification. The built footprint should not exceed twice that of the original dwelling, and also no more than 50% of the front or rear curtilage developed. So on that note of evaluation, the primacy of the development plan, with that being NPF 4 and the local development plan, and all applications being determined on merits unless material considerations indicate otherwise, and each application treated on merit. So the basis for the decision would be, would the proposals comply with zoning policy on the Greenbelt, or would it be small scale and appropriate in scale and subordinate? Would the change of use of agricultural land comply with Greenbelt policy, and would the proposal comply with Householder Design Guide? Would it be subordinate and in terms of the footprint compared to the original? So does the proposal comply with the development plan as a whole, or are there material considerations weighing for or against the proposal? And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Any questions for Ms. Green? Councillor Cook?
Yeah, thanks. Lucy, in your presentation, there was a picture, a photo of what's there already taken from the road. I wonder if you could just bring up that one again. I think I can remember it, but I just want to just make sure I remembered it properly.
Yeah, just a second. Right, let me.
Yeah, that's the one.
Councillor Bolton?
Can you keep that picture up? Where is that in relation to the football training ground? Is that overlooking to that, depends which way you're looking. If looking at the picture, is it to the left?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying. I can go on to Google Maps if you.
Yeah, well, I was trying to do it on Google Maps. It wasn't much success, so that would be helpful.
I think I can help you here. The training stadium, I believe, is to the right.
It depends if you're right or my right.
As we look at that, I think the training stadium is off to the right, because you can see the boundary where the city and the Shire join. It's the other side of the fence of this farm. Okay. So if you come straight, so the
you ran across the field, you'd be there.
This is it, yeah.
Okay,
that's the fine. Football training stadium.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the application site is the red. No.
No, it's up here.
Sorry, I'm looking down on this so that you don't have to look at me.
Yeah, that's the.
Okay.
That's the helpful site, and that's the football.
Perfect, thank you. Stadium.
I've got a question for you, Lucy. Could you tell us what the makeup of the proposed extension is? Is it a lounge, bedrooms, or what is it?
It's bedrooms on the top floor. Let me just pull it up. That's the ground floor.
Yeah.
And then it's 2 bedrooms on the upper floor.
Okay. The other question I had, it just totally slipped my mind for a second. Hold on. Yes, it says we have to take consideration of the original building. Now, the original building, please correct me if I'm wrong, for this application is the original bothy plus the current extension. That becomes the original building. The other extension, when that was built, that would be just the bothy. But this one, the original building is actually as it stands at the moment. Is that right? Or am I totally wrong and it should only be the bothy?
I think if you were saying original building, that would be the bothy, although that wasn't a house on its own. You know, it was when it was granted permission to become a house, the extension was part of that permission. So if you said existing building, in terms of the Greenbelt policy says existing building, that would be the bothy and extension.
Right, okay. So when they speak about the size, it's, when they say 3.5 times the original, it's actually basically half as big because it's 75, this one. So the original would be the current extension plus the bothy. And then this is 75%, 75 square meters out of 300. So this is basically half the size. Well, it's the same size as the original extension, basically.
The way that we would work it out from the APG is that we would look at the original building as the bothy, as the report of handling looks at it this way. So the original would be the bothy, and that's why the report's saying it's tripling the footprint, because the original building would be the bothy. Whereas the applicant's statement is talking about Greenbelt policy, which refers to the existing building. So the existing building would be the bothy plus extension.
Right, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's an easy one, isn't it? Right. Any other questions? Right. We now need to consider whether we have sufficient information in front of us today to take a decision on the application. Members, remember that if you do not feel you have enough information to take a decision, you can request the further written information be provided, hearing be arranged, and a site visit be undertaken. I believe we've got sufficient to make a decision. Councillor Cook?
Yep, agree with that.
Councillor Bolton?
Agreed.
Okay. As members feel we have sufficient information, we will now hear from Ms Green on the relevant policies and considerations for this review. Ms Green?
Yeah, I've covered the policies.
Right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, apologies. Maybe I didn't stop.
Back.
I think you may have, Queen.
I think I might have, right. So, decision time. Determination. Anybody, any firm views?
Yeah.
Councillor Bolton?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that, you know, there are certain policies that we have to consider, and I'm a great champion of the Greenbelt. However, for me, this one, I'm actually quite comfortable with it. It's a tiny bit of land that's going to be impacted in the Greenbelt that I don't think detracts from the Greenbelt at all, particularly when you look what's around it and in front of it. I don't think people will be looking at this extension. I think the fact the materials are darker will allow it to sort of be absorbed into the landscape more. It kind of gives a bit of a look like a barn that would have been there. It's set in that traditional style. So, you know, in terms of policy D1 quality placemaking, I actually think it's a good design. I think they've gone out of their way to make it symmetrical, with the two different sides, with the two buildings being almost mirror images of each other, although they are different fabrications. So I don't think it has any impact, really, minimal impact, should I say, on policy D4, the landscape. I appreciate that we do have a bit of conflict with policy NE1 and policy 8 of the Aberdeen Local Development Plan in terms of the Greenbelt. But as I said, I think that's marginal. And I think when we start looking at design, you know, I think that can be individual preference. I know we've got standards to work to, but I think it's actually really quite nice, and I'd be happy to overturn this decision. And if there's any conditions, I'm happy to hear from the screen. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, convener.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Put your hand up.
Yeah, pretty much what Councillor Bolton said. I mean, I think if you were driving along that road and you were looking to the side, you wouldn't be sort of saying, look at that enormous monstrosity. You'd be thinking that's perfectly acceptable, perfectly normal. In terms of green belt policy, to me, it is associated with the existing use, and it is, to my mind, small scale. I actually quite like the design. I think it's perfectly compatible, perfectly sympathetic to what's there already. So I'd be more than happy to overturn the original refusal.
Thank you. I agree with you both. I don't feel it's overbearing. I do feel it fits in quite nicely and will make a lovely home for somebody. So I'm quite happy for us to approve it. So we have agreed unanimously. Mr. Green, any conditions you think we should be putting on?
I don't think so. No, the materials are all listed, so I don't think there's a need for any conditions.
Okay, so it's overturn the decision and grant without conditions. Thank you all very much. That's us for today. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks,
Thanks, Murray.
all right, bye now. Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay.